What's up YouTube? Jeff back again from High on Android and DopeTechDaily.com. Today I'm bringing you guys my full review of the LG G5, and I know this is going to be a long video, so I just want to get right to business. I want to go through the specs real quick, and then as you guys know, I always have a Google Keep document just with my thoughts. Got quite a lot of them, so I want to get right to them. The specs, we've got the Snapdragon 820, 4 gigs of RAM, 32 gigabytes onboard storage, micro SD slot. You get about 22 or 23 gigabytes to use out of the box, depending on your carrier. 5.3-inch QHD LCD display, dual camera setup with the 16 megapixel main shooter, f1.8 aperture, 8 megapixel f2.4 with the wide angle camera, and optical image stabilization laser autofocus. You've got front camera with 8 megapixels, f2.0, 1080p video. You've got that 2800 milliamp hour battery, which is removable with that modular portion on the bottom for expansion, the Cam Plus module, the B&O audio DAC, of course, USB Type-C with Quick Charge 3.0, no wireless charging, and 5.88 inches by 2.91 inches by 0.30 inches, and a very manageable 159 grams, 5.61 ounces. So now that we went through the specs, we know what we're working with, let's talk about the phone, and I want to start off with the build because there was a lot of controversy in my first few G5 videos that I did because I got a few bad units and I talked about a few things I didn't like with the build. So I just want to give you my overall impressions. Now, is the build on this phone bad? No, I just don't like the build on it as much as some other all-metal phones like the HTC One M9, the iPhone 6s Plus, phones that I own that are made out of a single piece metal unibody design. The LG G5, of course, has to be different because it's got the modular portion on the bottom. And before we go any further, I want to say, I do commend LG for taking a risk and going with this modular piece at the bottom that you can swap out with the button, put in the Cam Plus module. There's a lot of possibilities here, and that's great. But people still are going to expect a great build quality, and the units I saw in the beginning that have these seams down the sides of the paint where you can sort of see the antenna lines. It's really hard to see in the video. Some people commented they couldn't see it before, but you can see where the antenna lines have been painted over, and that's not a huge deal if you put a case on it. I did get the UAG case. You guys saw me do the video, and yeah, you're not going to see that. But some of the other issues, like if you saw my Verizon model on the bottom here near the bottom portion, it had a very raised up protruding lip on the metal portion. And that, of course, creates a large gap at the bottom where you can get dust. That's kind of a problem to me. I don't want to get dust in the module. And then I'm also worried about the fact that when you swap this modular portion out numerous times over the life cycle of the phone, how is this modular connection going to hold up? Now, I've only swapped it out a few times, and if I show you guys here, if I can zoom in near the bottom, I already have a little bit of paint that's chipping near this corner. I don't know if you guys can see it really well in the camera. There's a little bit of paint that's chipping. I've only switched out the battery maybe 5 or so times just to switch the battery in the middle of the day. So once you switch in for Cam Plus module, the DAC, how's that going to hold up over time? That's a concern. So is this the worst build in the world? No, I don't have a huge problem with it. I just don't like it as much as some other all-metal phones, and I don't like it as much as the G4. The G4 had the nice curve in the back, which made it a smaller feeling phone than it actually was. This phone actually feels larger than 5.3 inches. If you look at the Galaxy S7 Edge, this is a 5.5 inch phone. These two phones look like they're about the same size. The G5 is actually a little bit wider. It actually feels a little wider, even though the S7 Edge is just a little bit taller. So the build is not my favorite part of this phone. Is it going to bother you? Is it a reason not to get the phone? Probably not. If you dig the modular portion, throw a case on it. It's not a big deal, and maybe some people even like the look of it. It's just not my favorite part of the phone. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that other than to say that yes, the phone is metal. Some people criticize me for saying it's plastic, but it does feel like plastic, and there's a good reason. That's because it has some emulsion paint and also some primer on top, and those are made of complex polymers at the molecular level, just like plastic. So at the end of the day, if you put a really thick layer on there, it's going to feel more like plastic than metal, and to me and a lot of other people who've reviewed the phone, it just doesn't feel like that nice cold feeling you get from an all-metal unibody design. Feels more like plastic in the hand to me personally. So the build is of course a preference, but I'm just giving you my personal thoughts to start off the review. All right, so we've got the build out of the way. If you disagree with me, of course, I'm sure you guys will leave me a comment. We can discuss that below, but that's what I have to say about the build. Let's move on to, let's go ahead and check that off. Let's move on to the display. So the colors on the LG G5, they're very true. So I like the way the overall color reproduction is. The problem that I have with the LG G5 display, and this has been commented on by numerous people, is the brightness. So I live here in Phoenix, Arizona. We've got incredibly bright sun. It's pretty much summertime already here in the middle of April, and this phone is very difficult to see outdoors. So I've been carrying around the G5 and then also the S7 Edge just as a secondary phone. When I've been reviewing this phone, I've been finding myself wanting to take out the S7 Edge because it's just so much brighter outside in direct sunlight. So if you live somewhere where it's super bright, that might be a problem. In addition, the auto brightness feature on the G5, the auto brightness, I found it to definitely auto dim things a little too much. So it makes it a little too dim. Even indoors, the auto brightness sometimes is a little too dim for my liking. So much so that I find myself taking the auto brightness off sometimes. But of course, that also degrades your battery life. So while the viewing angles on here are decent, they're not quite as good as those on the S7 Edge, and the brightness is severely lacking. So I would say overall, I love the color production. It's got a nice, sharp, clear display. You guys can see the icons all look very beautiful, and they're probably truer in terms of the actual color than what you're going to see on the Galaxy S7 Edge because it has the really saturated AMOLED panel. I personally prefer the really deep blacks, saturated colors on the S7 Edge. That, of course, is a preference thing, so if you don't like that, then you really like really true colors, the G5 will be a great display for you. But the brightness is pretty terrible universally, indoors and outdoors. Sometimes it's even almost unusable outdoors. All right. The next thing which I really like about this phone, and that is the fingerprint scanner. So the fingerprint scanner, as you guys can see here, it's incredibly fast and incredibly responsive and accurate. I did a fingerprint scanner test comparing my G5 to the Nexus 6P because they both have the rear firing scanner. And I found the G5 and the Nexus 6P, the G5 was a little bit faster than the 6P, and I found it to be super, super reliable. So pretty much every time I try to use this scanner, it responds to my fingerprint, opens the phone very quickly, and also you can go directly from the always-on display right into the phone without having to worry about needing to turn the phone on or tap to wake the phone. That's something you can't do on the S7 Edge, and it definitely makes a difference. If you use a 6P and you're used to that, you know what I'm talking about, you really value that feature, something you're going to like on the G5. So the fingerprint scanner overall, a huge win. They improved it a lot from the LG V10. I had a lot of problems with that fingerprint scanner, if you guys remember. So good job for LG and their improvement on the scanner. The battery, so let's talk a little bit about battery life and also the charging options. You guys can see today I've been using the phone. We're right at 69%. Of course, a little odd usage since I'm shooting the review, but I did take it off the charger 8 hours ago. Took it off at 6 o'clock this morning. And if you go in and take a look at the usage, let's go in and take a look at the battery usage here in the screen. Scroll down. There's the screen usage. So you guys can see we've got 1 hour, 8 minutes, 33 seconds screen on time there. That's not too bad. So if you project that out, that's going to get about 3.5 hours. And in my notes, that's pretty much spot on to exactly what I said has been my average. So in my notes here in Google Keep, I said getting about 3 to 3.5 hours screen on time. So 3.5 to 3 has been my average. It's been paired to my LG Watch Urbane 2, second edition, the LTE model, the whole time. So that's a Bluetooth device. I've also had it paired up to my LG Tone Infinims. So it's had a couple of Bluetooth devices paired to it. I've used it for things like social media, Instagram, using Talon. I have real-time updates turned on in Talon. Facebook Messenger, Facebook. I've got real-time updates turned on most of my social media. I also use it for responding to YouTube comments in Studio, uploading photos to Google Photos, and watching YouTube videos in Netflix. So I've been using the phone pretty heavily. 3 to 3.5 hours I would say is average, pretty okay. On the S7 Edge I get 4.5 to 5 hours with the same usage, so I wouldn't say it's good, but it's not terrible. And of course you have the ability to swap out the battery, and it's pretty quick. You just press the button here, pull the modular portion out. You got to get used to ripping the battery out. There's a lot of other tutorials on YouTube, so I won't waste time in this long video to do that, but once you get the hang of it, it's easy to switch, and then you go from 0 to 100 super fast by switching out the battery. The other great option that the G5 has, of course, is Quick Charge 3.0 with the USB-C port here on the bottom. So the USB-C on here actually supports Quick Charge 3.0, which is great because you're going to get super fast charging time. If we go into the gallery here, I actually took some screenshots. I did some battery tests charging from 10% up to 100. I have a bunch of these screenshots. I'll post them over on my website once I get done with the review. You guys can see from 441 to 452 in 11 minutes, it charged 20% from 10 to 30. And then from 452 to 502, you get all the way up to 50. So you get 40% charge in 20 minutes. That's pretty impressive. In 30 minutes, it's all the way up to 60. So you get 50% charge in 30 minutes, which is pretty much the claim with Quick Charge 3.0. If you project out all the way to full, you can see here that it does take it about an hour and 10 minutes to get to completely full. And that was about the experience. Depending on the charger that I used, that was with my the built-in power brick. I also did a test with the Aukey charger. I got an Aukey Quick Charge 3.0 charger. That one charges a little bit faster at about 65 to 66 minutes. So the Quick Charge 3.0 makes a huge difference if you want to get some juice quickly at the office. That can really be something that will compensate for the what I would say is mediocre battery life on the G5. So overall, the battery life is not bad, but the removable battery in Quick Charge 3.0 definitely get sort of high marks for helping you improve your battery management. The one thing that I would have liked to see, of course, would be wireless charging. This does not have wireless charging built in. The Galaxy S7, S7 Edge do. Got used to using that feature, love that feature. So I'd like to see LG give us that wireless charging feature, or at least give us some way to put it in there. Last year they had Quick Circle case that had the wireless charging functionality built in. It'd be nice to see an accessory that allowed us to get quick charge capability. To get an accessory that allows us to get wireless charging capability. Sorry. So that's battery and power. Not terrible, not the best, but those options definitely help. The next thing I really like is the speaker. So on the G5, you do have a bottom firing speaker. You guys can see the speaker grills right there next to the USB-C port. And I was initially concerned because of that. Bottom firing speakers aren't usually the best, but this one is actually quite good. It's better than the S7 Edge. I had no problem, watching YouTube videos or even listening to music from Spotify or Google Play, listening to podcasts from Pocket Cast. The audio is loud and clear as well. I definitely give the speaker quality high marks. It's not going to compete with something like the Nexus 6P that has front-facing speakers, the HTC One M9, but I would say it's one of the better bottom-firing speakers that I've heard so far. The S7 Edge, of course, has the waterproof capability, so that does mess up the speaker a little bit, but no excuses for the S7 Edge. The G5 speaker is just plain better, and for a bottom-firing speaker, I was quite impressed with the overall audio quality. Software is the next thing I want to talk about. Of course, it is running UX 5.0. You guys can see I'm running a custom launcher which is Action Launcher 3. We can go back and show really quick the stock launcher. So you can change that by going into settings, go to home screen, and then of course you can change from Action 3 back to home or Easy Home. And you can see the one thing that a lot of people don't like is you can see you've got all of your apps and no app drawer. So UX 5.0 comes with no app drawer by default. Is it a deal breaker? No, because you can install a third-party launcher. You can also have a couple other options, which are you could use Easy Home, but a couple people mentioned this to me. You do not want to use Easy Home because it looks really, really ridiculous. My friend Flossie Carter said it looks like an old person or a noob using the phone, and it does. It just makes all the icons blown up really big. It changes the overall scaling of the text. It just looks kind of ridiculous. I would never use my phone on Easy Home. And then the other option is UX 4.0, which you can download from LG Smart World, and that will put the LG the 4.0 launcher on here. So let's go back to home screen and change this to UX 4.0. And then you can take a look and see you get the correct text scaling and everything, but now you also have the launcher. Now the problem with this is it's got the same animations from Lollipop. It doesn't have the marshmallow animations. So it's still essentially the same launcher from the G4 and the V10. So if you bought a new phone, of course, you don't really want that. So I would like to see LG release UX 5.0 with the built-in launcher. Now I haven't checked the LG Smart World in a few days, so I don't know. They could have done that, but I doubt it because I probably would have heard about that. So LG showed off in their original preview of UX 5.0 an app drawer and home option with UX 5.0. Hopefully they'll come back to that and actually deliver. But for now, I'm going to continue rocking with Action Launcher 3 just because it gives me a better overall setup. If they do come out with UX 5.0 with the app drawer, I'll probably switch to that and give it a go. Other than that, a few things that I don't like about the LG software is that you have this notification shade that doesn't really look like stock Google. Takes up kind of a lot of space, as you guys can see. Samsung does that too, so not the biggest deal. You've got some quick settings and things that you can, choose to either have there or not. Overall, they do have some nice features in the software. You've got shortcut keys, which you can, take a quick screenshot or use Capture Plus, or you can take a quick picture with a camera. Whenever I double press the volume down button, and I have it set to automatically take a quick picture. That's definitely a nice feature I like a lot. The other one that I like, which I haven't used extensively yet, but I did set it up and test it on my Verizon model before I had returned it, is the smart settings. You can set up to turn on Bluetooth and do other things when you're away from home. Launch a particular music app whenever your earphones are plugged in, whenever you have a Bluetooth device connected. That's a great feature. And then one other feature that I love, which some people are going to say, well, they don't care about. I mentioned this in my video on features I really like about the G5. That is the LG Quick Remote, which you can use the IR blaster that's built in. I do have my cable box set up, my TV, etc., so that I can work with the LG G5 as my remote if I can't find my TV remote, or if I'm just too lazy and I have my phone right by. That's a great feature and I really like it overall. In terms of RAM management of the LG UI, still pretty heavy. I think it actually does a better job than TouchWiz in my experience. Some other reviewers have said that they find the UX 5.0 to be worse than TouchWiz. I haven't had that experience. I've actually had apps. I run a ton of apps, as you guys can see, keep everything open. And I've had the experience that for the most part, when I'm running a bunch of apps, if I want to launch an app that I haven't opened for a while, it opens very, very quickly. No problems at all. In terms of overall RAM management. Now, of course, if you have 50 apps in the memory, you can't expect all of them to load, but I've been able to keep 15 to 20 apps, previous apps in the memory, and I think it's a little bit better than the S7 Edge. I haven't done a rigorous RAM management test like I did with the S7 Edge versus the Note 5, but just in day-to-day use, it feels like it's very good. I haven't had any problems with apps reloading themselves, with the exception of YouTube Studio, which likes to reload itself all the time for whatever reason. It didn't in that case, just to make me look silly. But YouTube Studio likes to reload itself a lot of times in the background. Overall, UX 5.0 is not terrible. It's still a heavier skin than I'd like because it does a lot of things in the background, takes up some of your available resources with a lot of LG services. Some of them I want, like Quick Remote. Some of them I don't, like Quick Memo Plus, Capture Plus, all these other services that LG offers out of the box. So UX 5.0, not terrible. I would like to see that UX 5.0 launcher option. But other than that, not a bad job overall from LG. All right, so that I think is the end of the software. Let's talk about performance and the gaming. So performance on the Snapdragon 820, it's been pretty solid for me. Everyday app opening, as you guys can see, very, very fast and fluid when it comes to opening apps, social media, just your everyday type of apps. I've had no problems with that whatsoever. I've actually found it a little bit faster than the S7 in terms of everyday fluidity. Navigating around the screens. I haven't experienced any lag using Action Launcher or even using LG's launcher when I originally got the phone. No problems in terms of everyday use whatsoever. I have, again, did the benchmarks with Geekbench and also with Antutu. This one does score a little bit higher single core score than my S7 Edge, so it makes sense that it's a little bit faster in the everyday fluidity. I also haven't had any problems playing games. So I've been playing Atomos and One More Line, Smash Hit, some of my other favorite games, One More Dash right there. You guys know I love those two games. And I haven't had any problems with drop frames. Also played some Temple Run. No problems with drop frames or anything on the phone overall. Performance has been very good, no overheating. Now one thing I will say is if you have a bunch of games in your memory, like you load up One More Dash, you load up One More Line, and you load up Atomos and all of these games in a row, so if you load up a whole bunch of games, the LG G5 does tend to stutter a little bit in going back to the first game that you started playing, where the S7 Edge doesn't have that big of a problem with going into games and then stuttering with one that you had previously loaded. So if you have a bunch of intensive games like you're playing Temple Run, some of those racing games that have a lot of really intense graphics, those could create a problem in terms of having a little bit of stuttering when you're switching between those games. You might have to wait a little bit for the game to load and catch back up. So the S7 Edge, I would say, is better in terms of gaming performance, at least what I've noticed in terms of switching, that type of management, multi-core performance. but the G5 is better in terms of everyday fluidity. Next, let's get into the camera. So the camera, of course, a very important factor for smartphone purchasing for most people. And I have sort of a lot of things to say about comparing this to the S7 Edge. Now I have some comparison shots that I took between the two, which I'm going to upload to my website, and that'll be linked below so you guys can check it out. But I just want to show you guys the shots I took with the G5 today, say a few things about them, and also I'll give a little bit of an idea of how they compare to the shots on the S7 Edge. Now, a couple weekends ago, my mom and I, we went and took some pictures at the local marketplace. They got some nice gardens there. My mom was visiting me, so we went out, we took some pictures various places, indoors, outdoors. Here's a nice picture I took of some flowers, a very nice macro shot. The G5 has really nice capability with its main camera, the 16 megapixel shooter. You get great detail on your macro shots. You can see if you zoom in on this picture, you have fantastic detail on the flower. Overall, really true colors and very impressive. You can see here from a little bit further away, still captures great detail, gets some nice detail with the shadows and in the light. And this one's even further away with the sun shining a little bit from a different angle. Here's another macro shot of a red one. Again, great detail. It's got some really nice contrast of the different shades of red for the flower. Overall, I think the G5 has really true colors, much better in my opinion in terms of true colors than the S7 Edge. Here's a picture I took of a palm tree with the 16 megapixel, and here's one with the wide angle. Now I love the wide angle camera because you can get some amazing shots that you wouldn't be able to get with a regular camera shooter, and you don't even need to move. So I took these from the same spot. This is with the 16 megapixel, this is with the 12 megapixel. You still get pretty good brightness and you get great detail still from this wide angle shooter. You can capture the entire palm tree in the picture, which is really nice. I took some more pictures here, some cacti, some other palm trees, some other pictures of the garden around the stores. Here, this is one I took with the rear camera and then with the wide camera, sort of a panorama looking sort of shot, but I didn't even use panorama mode. This is just a nice landscape shot. The wide angle captures so much with those wide landscape shots that you want to get. A few other pictures here of the stage. They were setting up for a concert here, outdoor concert at the marketplace. A few more here of the flowers, various different colors just to see some of the color that you can get. Overall, the G5, very nice in the detail. It does have more detail than the S7 Edge. It's got truer colors. They're not as saturated, so if you like that, again, that's a personal preference thing. But if you really want true colors, which a lot of photographers, of course, true photographers are interested in, the G5 delivers on that. Took quite a few shots inside the candy store. This is the 16 megapixel camera with the wide angle camera. You can see quite a bit how much more you can capture. And then took quite a few pictures of some candies just to get some shots in terms of the contrast and the overall color production. So overall, I would say the G5 doesn't quite have as good low light capabilities as the S7 Edge. This particular photo, I took this one with the S7 Edge as well as the G5. I will link those below again. And this one is just a lot brighter with the S7 Edge. This was indoors with relatively low light. I sort of took it away from the lights in the store just so I could try and test this out. But the colors are better on the G5. So I think the trade-off is, that one's not in focus. But the trade-off is you get truer colors, not as good low light performance. The S7 Edge I think has a little bit better dynamic range, so you can differentiate the darker versus the lighter shades when it comes to pictures on the S7 Edge. But overall, the G5 camera, really nothing bad to say about it. If you are a photography kind of person, you probably like this camera better than the S7 Edge. If you're an everyday smartphone user and you take a lot of shots indoors, you might prefer the S7 Edge because of the low light performance. Now that being said, there's my mom acting silly with the huge lollipop in the store. So again, you guys can take a look through these and decide for yourself the comparison between the two. But I do think the G5 has a nice camera. It just excels in different areas than the S7 Edge. Now when it comes to the wide angle, I think that's a very unique feature. Again, this is taken with the wide angle versus this is the one with the 16 megapixel. I think the wide angle camera is a great feature to have. LG innovated there. That's something you can't get with Samsung. So if you like that convenience, it's definitely a good reason to get the G5. I think that's one of the reasons that you could convince yourself that this would be the phone to go with. If you really like that feature and you need it, I really love it. The front-facing camera, I took quite a few videos on this with the front-facing camera. I don't know if I have any other shots in this particular album. Yeah, here's a selfie I took with the G5. Pretty terrible selfie. And then I took one with the wide angle as well. There's the selfie with the wide angle, which also not smiling at all, terrible selfie. But that's just comparing the selfie on the front-facing versus with the wide angle camera. You can take some really interesting shots for selfies with the wide angle camera as well. So the front-facing camera is also excellent. You can see in this selfie great detail, still captures some of the shadows and the details in the background, as well as the facial features, including the fact that I needed to shave in this picture. It was a lazy Sunday. But overall, great video quality from the front as well, 1080p front-facing video, great stabilization. I was pretty impressed. In the car vlogs I shot, even the one at night, there was a little bit of noise, but that's what you expect. It's an 8 megapixel camera. Overall, the front-facing and the wide-angle camera, I think, are two features that when it comes to the G5, those are two things that you might actually convince yourself this is the phone for you. So when it comes to comparing versus the S7 Edge, I'll probably try to make a follow-up video to do that. But again, to summarize, color reproduction, great on this camera. If you're a true photography enthusiast, I think it might be the camera for you. Wide-angle camera, great, really good innovation from LG. I'd like to see more people add that wide-angle feature. All right, so that's it about the camera. Let's then close out talking about price, value, accessories, etc. So when it comes to the price, you're going to pay between $600 and $680 depending on where you buy this in the US. I bought it at AT&T, which is at AT&T is the most expensive. It's about $680, I believe. And at the end of the day, that's comparable to the S7. It's a little bit less than the S7 Edge. So I don't think the price is too far out of line. The one thing that is something to think about is if you're buying this for the modular design, which in my opinion is one of the chief reasons, along with the dual cameras and the quality of the front camera, to buy this phone, you're going to need to buy some modules to pop in there. So you're going to want to buy the LG Cam Plus. If you don't live in the US, you could also buy the B&O audio module. That's not available in the US for us yet. Who knows if it will be. But you're going to want to invest money in that. And my concern is that LG has been known to like to blow up their design year over year. So if they decide to do that next year, that might be a problem. You might have invested money, and then at the end of the day, you can't reuse these modules. So that's something to keep in mind. The modules are going to cost you between $70 and $200, and that's some additional investment that you need to make. One last category that I like to jump into and talk about when reviewing a new phone are the accessories that are available with the phone. So of course, with something like Samsung or Apple, you get a plethora of cases to choose from, and everyone, a lot of people like accessories. I like to have a lot of case options. If that's important to you, you're not going to get quite as many with LG as you will with Samsung and Apple, but you're still going to get enough case options to satisfy most people. And there are a lot of cool first-party accessories from LG, including the LG Friends. You've got the VR headset, the 360 cam, the Cam Plus, the B&O audio module, the rolling bot whenever that comes out. A lot of cool stuff to go along with this phone. You got a lot of cool cases from UAG. I did a review on that. If you like the UAG cases, VRS Design, I've got some cases coming up from them for the LG G5. There should be plenty of third-party cases along with the LG Friends. If you're truly interested in the modular concept, LG also has their own first-party case, which is this quick cover case. It's sort of inspired by the quick circle cases of past years, but they've added some nice new functionality to it. I'm actually going to do a review of this case. It's actually a pretty nice first-party case, and overall, you can actually see your notifications through the window. So let me make sure I snap it on. You can see your notifications, and the always-on display actually works through the window itself, and you can see the notifications as you normally would if you just had the cover off. That's nice because on Samsung's LED cover, you can't use the always-on display, can't use it on their Clearview cover as well. So overall, I think there's quite a few nice accessories. There will be a full review of this case on the channel coming soon, so watch out for that. I think the accessories, you can definitely satisfy your curiosity if you're someone like me that enjoys that. So overall, my final conclusions on the G5. Do I think this is the best Android phone of 2016 so far? No, I emphatically do not think that. I think the S7 Edge still takes that spot because I would recommend the S7 Edge to anyone I know, regardless of if they are an Android or an Apple user. I would tell people to switch from the iPhone to use the Galaxy S7 Edge. Would I say that about the G5? No, for a lot of reasons, because I believe some compromises were made in the overall feel of the phone to accommodate the modularity. Is it innovative? Yes. But do every regular consumer want the modular design? Are they going to use it? My guess is no. And so I think Samsung gave a more premium feel and look to the phone because they didn't have to accommodate that new innovative design. I have some concerns about whether LG is actually going to stick with the modular design, because if this design concept fails, if it doesn't do that well in sales numbers, do you really think LG is going to stick with this next year? My guess would be no. Then a lot of people who bought this, who are fans of LG, they bought a lot in the modules, they invested money. You're going to be out some money. You're not going to be able to reuse them next year. So that's a concern for me at the end of the day. And again, I have concerns about the display brightness. It's really not that bright outside. I find myself constantly wishing I had the AMOLED display over the LG G5's LCD display. And also the auto brightness is a little weird as well. Software, the UX 5.0 is still a little bit heavy for my personal liking. It's not as bad as TouchWiz in my experience, but it is something to keep in mind. It's definitely not stock Android if that's something that you're interested in. It does have a lot of positives. Again, Quick Charge 3.0. I like the IR blaster, the great front facing and the wide angle camera on the back, along with the really true color production on the main camera on the back. Those are all great points, but I just don't like the build enough and the display quality, along with that concerns that I have about how well the modular concept is going to hold up next year, whether that's really going to be around, whether that's something that the average consumer wants. Those are all concerns along with the software that I have. Is this a bad phone? Absolutely not. If you want the phone, if you like the modular design, go pick up the phone. You're probably going to enjoy it. If you don't like the feel in the hand like me, you throw a UAG case on it, throw another case on it, third party, throw on LG's quick cover case. You're not going to have to worry about the back part of the phone feeling it. You're going to get the nice fluidity of the overall everyday experience. It's a very fast phone. You're going to get the great cameras and you get the modular design to play with. But if you're the everyday consumer, I would recommend the S7 Edge over this phone if you don't have a particular liking for the modular design, or if you're not a photography enthusiast and you don't need that wide angle camera, or you like the low light performance of the S7 Edge over the true color production on the G5. So those are my final thoughts on the LG G5 in this full review. I know it was super long. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you disagree with anything I said or you have any questions, feel free to drop me a comment below. I'll definitely get back to you. You can also find me over at Dope Tech Daily. I'm going to post those camera shots as well as a written review over there as well. I'll drop the link below. You can find me at Google+, Twitter, and Instagram in the links in the description as well. I appreciate you guys checking out this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, as it really helps out the channel. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching.